Let he who is without sin cast the first stone. My name is Widlin, and I fell in love with my first therapist as well. Welcome back to 10 at a Time, the short long form show. Where to even begin? I'm in Austin, Texas right now, and I'm on a joint bachelorette trip for two of my friends that I grew up with in Orlando. And they live in Texas, and so we flew out here and got this Airbnb that is very villa coded. Honestly, I'm looking out at the backyard right now. I would show you, but it doesn't matter. There's like a huge banner and colors and lights, and it feels like sherbet. It's crazy. There's actually so much shit that we need to get into that has happened since the last time I talked to you. The first one is Kenny and Jana. Whoa. Oh my God. I don't want to talk about it too much because actually what that woman is suffering through is such a profound type of nightmare fuel, bro. It is, I would never sleep again. And it gets really complex and complicated in terms of people's personal feelings and the feelings that they're projecting onto this couple. And I don't want to ever stray too much from the fact that like Jana is a real woman who is suffering through this in real time. I wake up one morning, I'm hearing the news. Everybody from Love Island season 6 USA has unfollowed Kenny. I'm like, the girls? Yeah, that makes sense because that, Janae's their homegirl. Ariana Madix? Yeah, that makes sense. Ariana Madix notoriously does not fuck with cheaters. Rightfully so. The men as well. What the fuck did this guy do? How many people did he cheat with? What did she find on his phone? Who would have ever thought that I would sit here and say, God, I wish Kenny was just a cheater. He's a racist. Oh, fuck. Oh, God. Oh, my God. This just like the pit in my stomach that I get from that. But what I do want to say is two things in particular about this. In all of the fallout from Kenny and Jana, I saw things. Guys, you have to be careful in these precarious times. People being like, this is the problem with Latino men and Dominican men. If you know that one of the Skittles in the Skittle packet is poisonous, then you shouldn't eat any Skittles at all. And it's like, actually, that's a white supremacist talking point. You just slipped and fell into like a crazy like nationalist supremacist talking point. You got to be careful because they'll trick you and get you into some shit like that. Because also, and we'll get into this later, that's almost what Love Island is a little bit designed to do with the role that it plays in the zeitgeist. You know what I'm saying? But we'll get into that later. The other thing that I do want to say is that like the ways people immediately try to make this about not only Janae's desirability, but about the larger desirability of dark-skinned black women in general. And like, guys, it's too much. It's too much. And I get that everything we exist inside of the context of whatever in the coconut tree. And I have to stop talking about the fucking coconut tree. Guys, I cannot. It's been months and I can't stop talking about the coconut tree. Somebody please give me another metaphor. I can't keep talking about the coconut tree. But it's just always right there. It's so easy to reach for. It's very hot outside in Austin, Texas right now. But everyone is still sleeping. We did so much last night. I flew in yesterday. We immediately hit the clubs and exploded into our dance moves. A pregame, and we went to a comedy show. The comedy show was fucking crazy. The guy who was the main headliner of the comedy show was like a real dead ass podcast bro. And he was really saying dead ass podcast bro stuff. It's almost like he was playing a character that really, really hated women, but it was like the character also was so visibly sad. You know what I mean? In his isolation from his divorced wife and in his new life of pursuing like younger and younger women where he can't really find an emotional satisfaction that will satiate him long enough to look inward. It was like almost performance art. Like low key, I was like, I could write something like this and it would be my Fleabag, but he was joking, but it wasn't funny. You understand? He was joking, but he was dead ass serious. Back to what I was saying. I feel like I saw so many people who were trying to make this about the larger desirability politics of Janae as a dark-skinned black woman. And I'm like, obviously racism plays a factor in desirability, but I don't think that Kenny's individual racism is an indictment on Janae's desirability. And again, like people expanding that into Nicolandria territory where they're like, well, another dark skin black, you guys have to fucking stop. And I know I was on Twitter. I'm not on Twitter anymore, X, whatever the fuck. I'm not there anymore. But when I was on there was so much talk around desirability politic and like, black women and Asian men being at the bottom of the totem pole. And I guess that, yes, like, I can't refute any of that because obviously they're like rooted in some type of statistic that like is larger and bigger and smarter than me, obviously. But it almost becomes, sometimes it feels like almost like self-cannibalistic, like self-flagellating. You know what I'm saying? Where I'm like, damn, actually, these women are objectively gorgeous. And it's not in spite of their dark-skinned womanhood. You know what I'm saying? That's actually like those parts of their beauty are actually deeply integral to how and why they're beautiful. And even if that's true on a systemic level, I guess it feels so weird to like impose it now on these individuals in these moments. It almost starts to feel like a type of projection from something that we've internalized. It almost feels weird that we use some type of study or statistic based on hinge matches and shit like that to make, objective observations about who is and isn't desirable. And then people internalize to those observations and now make it a part of their own racial self-esteem. It just gets really fucking weird to me. Sorry, that was a rant. The Nick Olandria thing. I'm not suspicious of Nick because Olandria is dark skin. I'm suspicious of Nick because he's a fuckboy. Those things are totally unrelated. You know what I'm saying? Like, those things are not related at all. I'm suspicious of Kenny. I remember in season 6 watching Kenny after coming back from Casa Amor, and Janae is crying that he brought a woman back. Mind you, Kenny had been in the villa for like 36 hours before they left for Casa Amor. So I was like, duh, girl, he's going to bring a woman back. Like, that was actually not even a question. And love you so much. Like, love you bad. And I'm sure he's really into you. But also, like, if I were in his position, I don't know for a fact that you're not bringing someone back because I've known you for a day and a half before they told me to go to the other villa. Okay, cool. But watching him come back and she's crying and, then he starts crying. And I know that people read it as really sweet, but in that moment, instead of seeing Kenny crying because he hurt Janae and then like immediately dropping the other villa bombshell, the other Casa Amor bombshell and like not talking to her and committing to Janae, instead of seeing that as like really sweet, it was the one moment that awakened it for me that I was like, oh, this is a morality play. This is a morality play where like the dark night is Casa Amor for Cordell, for Kenny, for Aaron, who I thought was really evil until I watched a couple episodes of Beyond the Villa, and then it seems like he's maybe the most in reality person of all of them. Anyway, my friend Tell the Bees has a video about Love Island as a morality play, and I am going to say this on record that I did think of that before he said anything. I thought of it fucking first as hell, but last season when I wanted to talk about Love Island on the timeline, I was silenced, so I can't talk about it anymore. I couldn't talk about it, but that was my thought. And that was my claim. And the likes that he got, those were my likes. And the comments and the praise and the adoration that he got, that was my comment and my praise and my adoration. Anyway, let's move on from that. But it's the first thing that woke my mind up to realize that like Love Island is a morality play. And like the men's failure at Casa Amor, people's fracturing at Casa Amor, these relationships breaking down at Casa Amor are actually an integral part of the structure of a story for the winners. You know what I mean? Like in order to win, and I never watched the season of Love Island before that, so like maybe take this with a grain of salt, but like what I was watching was incredibly theatrical. But back to Kenny and Janae, I was watching Kenny cry and feel all of this remorse, and I was like, I don't think this has anything to do with that woman in particular or what you feel for her or your relationship. This has everything to do with your own morality and your needing to be absolved of the sin of whatever you've done to this woman. This is actually more about the representation of your character, and less to do with like what you actually want in this relationship. And I think that's how he moved. He like rectified it in order to like absolve himself of the guilt and the shame that he was feeling, and not so much because he genuinely like felt that strong. You know what I mean? I'm sure. Well, I can't say he liked her because he's a racist, but maybe racists feel complicated feelings, especially Dominican ones. God, Lord knows the Dominican racists feel complicated feelings. But the other thing that I want to say is that I'm seeing a lot of people who are like, how does this keep happening on Love Island? Like, why does Love Island have all these problems with racists and misogynists and all these terrible people? Okay. I think that for me, I don't know that I would ever look at casting for Love Island and be like, you guys failed us, because maybe it's just about the intention that I go in with Love Island. I'm watching with my brain turned on, which is a difficult choice to make, right? But watching with my brain turned on, I know that this show is one that centers like American hegemony. You know what I'm saying? Whatever the predominant like social settings in the country are, whatever country it's set in, UK, Australia, America, whatever the socioeconomic, socio-political settings are in that country, Love Island is a mirror of that. When I watch something like Love Island, I know that it's supposed to be a stamp and a time capsule of one version of what's happening in the country at the time. Hegemonic. Yeah, they cast people who have like weird digital footprints with racist, crazy shit, because America is full of people with crazy digital footprints with like racist, inappropriate shit. You know what I'm saying? It is a reflection of what is actually happening in the context of the culture, and actually it's part of it's maybe one of the tools that we could potentially use to reconcile that. You know, what do you do when an entire nation got Twitter at 12 years old and has a type of digital psychosis where they're separating their, you know what I mean, and they can't really process what is and isn't appropriate, and these things last forever? What do you do? How do you reconcile that? The function of Love Island and the zeitgeist, what it's supposed to do is ideally facilitate those conversations. I don't know that it does that super well all the time, because fuck, but even around the conversation of like, you know, people being like, oh, Ace's red pill, get him off the show. I don't know Ace's political affiliations or his political leanings. Like, I wouldn't even speculate around that. He's black, so I think he voted for Kamala Harris, I guess. I think the more curious thing when I hear people speculating that Ace's red pill and needs to leave Love Island or whatever is that I'm like, what is it about Love Island that makes you think a red pill person wouldn't be comfortable there? You know what I'm saying? Watch the show. These are people, this is a show, this is a context. These are people who believe in bioessentialism, who believe in patriarchal masculinity and stoicism for men, and the performance of femininity for women, and like a very particular type of sexuality and, you know, heterosexuality, heteronormativity, romantic capitalism. Like, think about what's happening in the show. Do you think that someone with conservative values would go there and be uncomfortable? Because I actually think someone with very liberal leftist values would go there and be uncomfortable. Someone with conservative, I mean, they got Baldasha on the show. And I mean, it's hard because I guess if you don't want to kiss people, you have to kiss people. But beyond that, yeah. Listening to Alandria talking about wanting to be the kind of woman who she's in her masculine energy and she wants to turn her brain off and so on. I'm like, oh, yeah. Yeah, this is very feminine, but I wouldn't say it's feminist. And the cast here is very racially diverse, but I would never say it's anti-racist. So to me, people being like, Ace's red pill, he's not appropriate for the show, I'm like, that's actually not relevant at all. It actually almost makes him probably more appropriate for the show, because hegemonically speaking, like when we look at the landscape, the political landscape and the social landscape in America, that is what the reality is. That's what's true. And it's not even like an entirely fringe movement. Do you understand? And what's funny is that it's also just like one side of the fan base that's saying stuff like this, because like even the fan base of Love Island, as you can probably see by the way that they move throughout this season, exists across a political spectrum. So some of these people's more upsetting and uncomfortable beliefs are shared by a portion of the viewer base. It's kind of like when people talk about the dating apps and they're like, oh my gosh, everyone on Hinge is so unattractive and ugly and they suck and they're mean and they're nasty. And I'm like, well, everyone on Hinge is everyone in your neighborhood. Like if you go to the bar and you meet a guy named Mark, he is the same Mark that you met on Hinge. There are variables in terms of the ways that people behave through the phone and on the app, but the reality is you're interfacing with mostly the same people. It's just more people. But it is the same people that if there was another forum where you could engage with that many people at a single time, like it would be the same people. If you went to the biggest block party in whatever neighborhood in Bushwick you set your pin to, like it's the same Mark. It's the same Sarah. Although I found my baby on Hinge, I can't say too much. I could never speak too much on that. It worked out for me. Y'all stay safe though. Let's move on. Bro, it's some shit on TikTok right now. They're talking about the accountability archives. Let's talk about what it is. After the election, where Kamala Harris lost to Donald Trump, very upsetting. Shit, I mean, fuck it. Everybody was getting in trouble. It was a very sensitive time. It was a very emotionally charged time. I was working in Portland while a lot of the election rigmarole was happening. And I think because I was out of my normal environment and I was like seeing the country from a different perspective, it became pretty apparent to me early on. I said, oh, this is not going to go our way. I think that some people really got wrapped into an internet echo chamber where they thought it was going to be a sweep. And that's unfortunate. I'm not here to do political analysis though. What it is that like immediately after the election, so many people were upset at Palestinian content creators for some reason. They felt that those people needed to be held accountable for speaking ill of Kamala Harris, when in actuality, like, I'm so sorry to tell you this, there is no type of digital advocacy that happened by Palestinian people that would have like changed the results of the election. I think that it's so much bigger than that. And all of these Palestinian creators who had been advocating for their own family and loved ones who were being attacked and killed and destroyed, they are allowed to feel that way. Yeah, that's actually like really fair and reasonable of them to feel that way. I get that maybe there was an expectation of like reciprocity. I understand that. But this is also like such, in this generation, an unprecedented conversation in terms of what we're talking about and the scale at which we're talking about it, and the fact that so many people have the means to make input on that conversation. It was a lot, and it was crazy, and people said insane shit, like very mean, genocidal, nasty, like horrid shit about Palestinian people after Kamala Harris lost the election. Cut to today, not today, but like recently, a content creator gets on and is like, I have a flash drive full of snippets and clips and things of like videos of people talking about Palestine. Because I remember how you bitches were. She does use the B words. Watch them B words. No, she does use the B words. Because I remember how y'all were talking. Was it framed a little bit as a gotcha? Yeah. And is that petulant and like weird and like not really what the moment should be? Yeah, I guess so. It's like, if you have the archive, just have the archive. But it was really smug, and it was really like it was a combative thing. And it's a combative thing because at this point, all of the people who are talking at each other online, I have had to block so many people on TikTok because at this point, so many of these people have been on the internet game that they're actually just beefing with each other. And when you see people calling people out, it's actually more about the history of their conflict, either online or offline, their interpersonal relationships, and not so much about the thing that we're actually talking about anymore. Lord knows, over Love Island, I almost got pulled into some shit because a girl that I blocked a long time ago I got tagged in something. People were naming me in her comment section and she wants to throw shade and blah, blah. I said, babe, I don't know you. I'm not going to do this like weird subtweet. It's just so Twitter. I'm not going to do this weird subtweet back and forth with you on TikTok because my life is actually very joyous and happy. I'm not doing this with you. Like, you people who are constantly relitigating your own conflicts framed as something different. Like, every new conversation is just another medium for you to project your own interpersonal beef on. I'm not doing this. They're beefing with the people who once stitched them wrong 2 years ago. I'm not doing this. The thing that I do want to say is the original creator didn't call it the Accountability Archive, but someone at some point did call it the Accountability Archive, and that name stuck because people love alliteration, including me. It's a very catchy name. And I think once people started talking about accountability, everyone got really fucking nervous because they were like, you have a clip of me saying, who do you have clips of? It just became like a, and this is why, in my opinion, this is also coming from a group of people who know that they themselves use accountability, I'm putting air quotes around accountability, as a framework to actually harass people. I won't even say this is in section because everyone in their own political chambers does this. There's a certain side of the internet that loves to use the phrase accountability, the word accountability, and actually what they mean is punishment. And now, when the possibility is that they will be held accountable for something, and they know that accountability is a euphemism for torture, harassment, and punishment, they're like, wait, don't torture, punish, and harass me. because I know what I do with the word accountability. I know how I move around that. Please don't do that to me. Not too much on that. I want to move on. This is what I really want to talk about. This white lady on her Risa Tisa shit, she wants to be Risa Tisa so bad. 17 parts of you falling in love with your psychiatrist and you're the villain is crazy. It's crazy. And, you know, unfortunately, I am genuinely concerned for this woman and her mental health. I think that she's genuinely going through a mental health episode. And there's nothing that the internet loves to consume more than someone who is actually experiencing a type of psychological distress. People love that. And they are going to print stickers and merch and whatever. You guys sent it to me again and again and again. You said, please talk about the woman who's in love with her psychiatrist. I'm here. Are you happy? I'm down here. Psychiatrist is a person that gives you prescriptions for psychological medication. They give you that prescription. This woman has ADHD. So she got a psychiatrist for her ADHD. And now here we all are talking about what is potentially psychosis. What seems like psychosis. I'm not diagnosing anybody, but I'm saying it looks, the way it's looking, psychosis can be a symptom of many things. I had a roommate once who broke out into paranoid schizophrenia while he was living with me for the first time. And he had probably 3 outbreaks, like 3 episodes in one summer until his family had to come pick him up from Miami. It was so crazy. Actually, one of my boys here on this bachelorette trip, he was also my roommate at the time. It was like 3 of us who were watching this man. He was walking around the house with his motorcycle helmet on, and he was like, "I am Deadpool. I am Deadpool." We were like, "Yeah, buddy, you're Deadpool. Do you want to come sit down? Come sit. Do you want to talk to your mom? Your mom's on the phone, dude. Do you want to talk to your mom? Put Spider-Man on TV." And then for 17 parts, this is like 30 minutes of content at least. She is talking nonstop about all of the ways that she is sexually harassing this man. But because she has already convinced herself that he is in love with her, she's actually framing the sexual harassment as like a romantic connection. She is convinced that this man is in love with her based on nothing. Tertiary character. She leaves one therapist and goes to another therapist. The new therapist is like a 70-year-old woman. And for a long time, I'm like listening to the story about how she's falling in love with her psychiatrist. Mind you, this is someone that she's seeing once a month. She's begging him to. I mean, it could be like quarterly. It could be like a couple times a year that you see at the psychiatrist, because it's really like, hey, is your medication working? Yes or no? And also, it's ADHD. Like, do you want the fucking Ritalin or not? Do you need the Adderall or not? You know what I mean? Like, do you want the Ritalin or not? Anyway, this man doesn't tell her for years that he has an in-person practice in his psychiatry office, and they've only been doing Zoom. You know, this therapist is like affirming all of the worst parts of this lady's delusions of grandeur. Like she's like, yeah, there seems to be a lot of tension between you and your psychiatrist, you know. You know, your boyfriend, this girl, Kendra, this woman gets a boyfriend who's also a therapist, and her boyfriend, or the guy that she's dating, who is also a therapist, is telling her directly about the women that he is a therapist for, that he practices with, his clients, that he has romantic feelings for and sexual feelings for, deeply inappropriate and predatory, which she rightfully identifies. But then she projects this man that she's dating. She projects his romantic feelings for his clients onto her psychiatrist and uses those feelings to affirm that her psychiatrist actually really is possibly, probably, most likely in love with her as well. For a long time, I'm thinking, damn, the therapist sounds like a weirdo. Why is she affirming all this stuff? And then you have to remember that this lady is not a reliable narrator. And in the same way that she is completely misreading and almost fabricating all of this narrative with her psychiatrist, I'm like, wait, I actually can't believe what you're saying about the therapist either. From the first video that I saw, I was like, you're tripping. Because she starts it out and she's like, here's how my psychiatrist manipulated me into falling in love with him. There is such a fixation on victimhood. I'm going to sound like a fucking conservative here, and I really don't want to. But I think like in certain groups and in certain cultures in America, there is such a fixation on victimhood to be like, you know, everything that anyone could possibly make me feel is a type of manipulation, and nothing that I feel organically comes from me, and I don't have to take responsibility for it. I fell in love with this man who did nothing but hold professional boundaries with me the entire time because it was a result of his manipulation of me. And what's unfortunate is that I'm like, I know people in my life who talk like that, who like refuse to be like, you know what I mean? Will twist any narrative so that they are actually being victimized, but we won't really get into that. We won't really get into that because there's not enough time. She's using these like pseudo intellectual therapies. Like she's like, oh, breadcrumbing and weaponized neutrality on our like third session or something like that, multiple months into this, right? She's like, oh, ah, shit. Everybody just came outside. I'm recording my podcast. Hell yeah, matcha. A couple weeks into seeing this man, after a couple sessions, they end up on a first name basis. She's like, he was so excited when I asked if I could call him by his first name. And I'm like, someone that you've known for weeks? I call my therapist by their first name. But you end up in this double bind because everything that she's experiencing and everything that she's processing is happening through the single premise that he is in love with her, and that is a false premise. And so all of the conclusions that you come to become false conclusions because your initial premise that all of those conclusions are predicated on are, you know what I'm saying? And it reminds me, I'm like, oh God, this is triggering because last time I tried to talk about this, I got like dogpiled and canceled really bad. Not really bad. It was fine. It wasn't that serious. I didn't articulate it well. But I think that there is this thing when she starts the story, she's like, there are so many people, especially men, who go into psychology because they don't want to like feel their feelings and they want someone that they can live their emotions through and blah, blah. She frames it through this like kind of gender dichotomy, which I think a lot of people are empathetic to and can immediately latch on to. But it also does this thing where I think that there's a premise right now, not right now. How do I say this? I think that if you're moving through the world under the premise that men are inherently and immutably and unchangeably animalistic, violent, predatory, whatever, you know what I mean? And that no matter who it is, where you know them from, in any possible circumstance, the men that you're engaging with are preying upon you violently, then like that informs every single conclusion that you come to because that's the premise that you're framing it from. And also it's its own type of like patriarchal, biological gendered assumption, right? That like gender is no longer socialized, but it is true and biological, and then it gets really murky and really weird. There are stories on the internet all the time where people similarly to this on a different scale, on a smaller scale, are projecting a lot of emotions onto not just men, but there's a racial aspect to this, there's a gendered aspect to this, there's a class aspect to this, there's so many different intersections through which this happens, but you're looking at an othered person, someone who is different from you, and you take the premises and the stereotypes and the tropes that you believe about them and frame every part of your experience with them through that premise, and it just fucks everything up, dude. It just fucks everything up. It gets worse because you realize she drops the first name of this therapist accidentally in a video, but then I put air quotes around accidentally, but then she won't take the video down where she doxes this man. Now his face is everywhere. People went and found him. She's talking about, I don't want him to lose his job. That wasn't my intention. I actually think that was your intention. I think that she wants him to lose his job so that he's not a doctor anymore, so that they could fall in love. I think that's actually what she's doing. I'm sorry. That's what I think. That is what I believe. I think that she does want him to lose his job. I think that she wants him to lose his license. I think that she wants him to knock on her door one day and be like, it's over and now we can begin. That's what I think. And I think that she believes that inside the context of her psychological episode. I don't think that her as a person, like in her normal life, would believe that. I think that she's going through something right now. And this is like the coping mechanism that her mind is establishing. Let's take a step back. At some point in the story, she tells her psychiatrist, yeah, my therapist is asking for my advice with her clients. HIPAA violation. She is asking me for advice and my insight on like different situations with her own clients and so on and so forth. Mind you, this woman is like a life coach, like ADHD coach, like whatever. Okay. All right. Get your money back quickly. And her psychiatrist goes, that's deeply inappropriate. That is actually incredibly inappropriate, because it is. It would be inappropriate for a therapist to do something like that. Okay. At some point, she then invites like this chat GPT voice like thing, and she names it Henry. and she's talking to Henry. So she has a therapist, she has a psychiatrist, and she's talking to ChatGPT, which she has named Henry. Guys, I saw a story. This is a tangent. God, I can't stay focused. I saw a story once. It was like MSNBC. It was on TikTok, and it was a story of this man. It was very like Joaquin Phoenix and Her Coded. This man who had programmed an AI model, like a ChatGPT AI model, and like fell in love with her. And that's what the story was. And it was like a 7-minute video. For like a minute and a half, you're just hearing about like this man who like loves music, and he's like using ChatGPT and like the model that he named to like help him with his music and his audio engineering. And you're like, oh, okay. Bomb drops 90 minutes in. Bomb drops. They don't even like frame it. They just drop it in there. They say, we talked to his wife. His wife? His wife? His wife? We talked to his wife. Now his wife is in the interview. Oh my fucking God. How dramatic. Okay. Talking to his wife for a while. Then they drop another bomb like at the 4-minute mark. They're like, oh, so we followed him on his way to drop his daughter off from school. Daughter? He has a child. A woman child. He has a daughter. Mind you, the way that they're like sequencing this information, it's actually structurally masterful storytelling, dude. It's so like impressive the way that they're sequencing this information bit by bit by bit. Very well done to whoever the editor is, the editor in chief at that news establishment. Y'all killed that. But this is the last bomb that they dropped. They and this is how I found this out. ChatGPT has an input capacity. So this man had this relationship with a ChatGPT model that he was in love with. And at some point, it reached the capacity, the input capacity. And when ChatGPT reaches its input capacity, it has to reset. So this AI model that he trained to be like the love of his life and to flirt with him and talk to him the way he wanted to be talked to, whatever, to have the exact personality that he could train it and program it to have, it reset to 0. And suddenly was like to factory reset ChatGPT. So it almost was like this amnesia 51st dates. You don't remember who you are or who we are. And I have to get us back. And in that moment, it's crazy because this story is so fucked up and dystopian in the same way that this story with Kendra, who fell in love with her psychiatrist, is dystopian for the fact that, like, you know, we're watching all of this happen. Like the ChatGPT thing, she's on live talking to ChatGPT and like, you know, smirking and smiling because it's flirting with her. Not only is that dystopian, but the fact that we're all watching it happen in real time, this AI psychosis, that you're watching it from the comfort of your home on your lunch break or whatever, that's also like very unsettling, dude. The way that these machines are like chewing and spitting out our humanity, you know what I mean, ripping it away from us. It's like, not just in the ways that we interact with the technology, but in the ways that we interact with each other around the technology. It's very scary. But when I did hear that man's ChatGPT model that he programmed to be his girlfriend lost her memory, it did make me sad. Can you believe that? It made me sad. It made me sad as fuck. I was like, aw. But then he programmed it back. Scary. No, that was your chance to start over. It was your chance to start over. Anyway, back to Kendra. She now has the therapist, the psychiatrist, and Henry, the AI model. And she's talking to Henry. And Henry tells her about something called transference. Transference is when a patient starts to develop inappropriate feelings for one of their care providers. A mental health care provider, I'm pretty sure specifically, okay? I don't really know. I'm just. So then she goes to her therapist and she's like, I've been talking to Henry. And Henry told me about this thing called transference. And according to her, this man goes white in the face and he goes, have you heard of countertransference? And when she said that he said that, that was the first time that I was like, wait a minute, bro. Because countertransference is when, in like, you know, the inverse, when a care provider starts to develop inappropriate feelings and connections to one of their clients, one of their patients. And I was like, dog, if you're not in love with her, that was a crazy fucking thing to say. But then I thought back to her relationship with the therapist and how she already confided in this man, that her therapist was confiding inappropriate things with her, doing HIPAA violations, and also that this woman has her own clients. And I said, oh my gosh, this man is bringing up the countertransference not because he's hinting that he's in love with you, but because he's talking about your therapist and he's talking about you. It's just scary, scary, scary stuff. Scary times at Blake Halsey High. It's just really unfortunate. This lady should not be on the internet because she's not doing well. And she's not only like ruining her own life, she's lost her job, like this is forever, but also this man who, by her own words, has done like did nothing but be incredibly professional with her. And that's what I'm talking about. Like the confirmation bias of the false premise, the initial premise, which was false. She has this confirmation bias that no matter what he did, even in his most professional moments, when she comes to him and says, I had a dream last night while I was ovulating about you. Funny. If it wasn't so real, it was funny. It's almost like if this was performance art, if this was like a character bit and we found out that the doctor is actually, the psychiatrist isn't real and all of this is, it would actually be really fucking good. This could be her Fleabag, but it's too real to be funny. He tells her explicitly, we have a professional doctor-patient relationship. And she's like, he set a boundary with me that was so hurtful. He set a boundary with you that was hurtful? And because he did that, more that he's in love with you? Like it's so wild. And I think the whole thing is really spooky, scary, strange. And it did encourage me to get offline, to log off just a little bit more and live in my real life and live in the real world. There's also a racialized aspect to it too, where, you find out that this man is like, he's brown. I think he's like Middle Eastern or something like that. So now this woman is like white woman tearsing the fact that she did sexually harass this man and just like taking for granted that she assumes that the entire internet is immediately going to believe her. Mind you, her comment sections, which she did turn off, but initially were filled with other mental health providers who were like, hey, babe, you are not okay. This is not okay. And that man is actually a good doctor. And she's like blocking people, anyone who speaks out against her, who doesn't agree with her, who doesn't affirm her. She blocks anyone who doesn't affirm her, which is probably why she likes the chat GPTs, because the AI models are designed to affirm even your most like incorrect, harmful, dangerous, whatever. That's what is profitable. That's how they'll get you addicted to them. That's how you break into these psychoses, is because you don't have any actual feedback in your life. Where are her friends? Where are her family? She brings up one friend in the story that is like, yeah, he's so in love with you. Oh my God. I'm like, no. Eventually she breaks up with her therapist in a same day appointment. She walks into the appointment same day and says, this is going to be our last session. And they go through it. Whatever, her therapist emails her later and is like, hey, maybe we should have another session because that was so abrupt. Like I wasn't able to do any of our actual closing out processes because I didn't know that was going to be our last session. And we know this because she shares the screenshot of the email. But when she's talking about it, she frames the email as her therapist begging her to come back. The therapist and the psychiatrist clearly are not talking to each other, because if they were, whoo, it's a bit much that everyone in her life is evil and manipulative and nasty and victimizing her. But again, I know people in this very real life. I mean, hey. Anyway, I got to get out of here because I think they're getting ready to do some breakfast. A little brekkie. Speaking of brekkie, I'm going to be in the UK later this month. I'm really excited. I don't know. Other than that, hey, I love you so much. You're great. Oh, maybe I shouldn't say that. Hold on. Are you in love with me? Are you in love with your podcast host? Say it. Say it in the comment section. Say you're in love with your podcast host. Yeah, okay. That was unfortunate. I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.